Hi there, and welcome to Plant CEO. In today's episode, I'd like to welcome Prashant Kumbhat, the founder and CEO of Vegan Grub. Hi, Prashant. How's it going?
Hi, Anant. It's going good. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you having me on your show.
Great. So you're in Manchester right now in the UK.
I am, yes.
Yeah. And so you've started a new company, Get Vegan Grub. Can you tell me about your new startup that you've launched?
Sure. So Get Vegan Grub is an ethical alternative to Deliveroo, Just Eat, and Uber Eats. That's like the 5-second pitch that I give to everybody. But what we're really trying to do is, obviously make veganism more mainstream, more accessible. So through our portal, through our site, through our app, anyone who's vegan curious, anyone who's vegan, anyone who has dietary restrictions where they can't do dairy or certain forms of meats can definitely come onto our site and order pure vegan grub from there. Why veganism? I've been vegan for about 3 years now. I wanted to start a business that made sense to me. It was something that I wanted, which was aligned with my own values. And the biggest thing was not profiting off of meat, which is why it's purely all vegan food that you'll ever find on our website.
And so you're really taking on the big players that you mentioned there. Is there other companies in this area specializing in other sort of food verticals, if you like?
There definitely are. I think from the most direct competitors that we see are, obviously the big players, Deliveroo, Just Eat, Uber Eats. There's also Food Hub. There are a lot of indirect players as well. Companies like All Plants, but I think their business model is slightly different, where what they're doing is they're taking frozen meals and they're sending you, food worth 4 or 5 days at a time to your doorstep. So there's definitely good things happening, in all of these different areas, but they're not our direct competitors. There are certain other companies as well, companies like Slurp, Food Dish, but their business model, again, is slightly different, where what they do is they provide you the ability, where you, being a restaurant or a cafe, the ability to set up your own website for delivery or for pickup. So again, the space is definitely a bit crowded, but I think we've carved a very good niche for ourselves, which is trying to run an ethical business, and B, dealing only with vegan food.
Yeah. And the bigger players now are, they're doing all sorts of food. A lot of them now also focusing on the fast food market, where they weren't so much before. In the early days, it was, I guess, more local based. How much responsibility do you think they need to have according to sustainability and dietary controls to promote the fact that we do need to be eating according to what is good for our planet as well?
That's a really, really good question. I think we all need to be thinking about, from a consumer's perspective, we need to be thinking about how we're treating our own bodies, the kind of food that we're putting in, and obviously the impact that it has on the planet. I think from a corporate or a business perspective, largely, I think most big corporations today are still being driven by profit. So for them, whether it's a chicken burger or a chicken nugget from McDonald's, it doesn't really matter, as long as, it's making a huge impact on their bottom line. So from that perspective, I do think it's up to businesses to really drive the way forward in terms of, the kind of food companies you're dealing with. What is their supply chain? How are they creating value? What sort of practices are they following that's creating a huge impact on the planet? Obviously, animal welfare is another huge concern, which is the primary reason why we decided to go all vegan. It's really up to businesses to educate consumers about what choices they're making, what sort of an impact their choices are having on the planet. And obviously also respecting animal lives and the torment that they go through their entire lifetimes until they're slaughtered for meat.
Yeah, and I think just highlighting, for example, Just Eat, who would use, a brand ambassador, if you like Snoop Dogg, but then also Beyond Meat works with Snoop Dogg. So that individual, Snoop Dogg is going in both directions, where his video may be promoting in the song, which is actually really catchy. So that's
I've
one
heard that
good
song,
thing they've got
unfortunately.
right, from that emotion side, but not when he's talking about chicken wings, and that's contradictory to I guess Beyond Meat's approach of using him as an ambassador. So there's a conflict there for these ambassadors, I think, and I think they have a duty of care to also push their own ethics, and I think people want them to push their own ethics, especially in today's society. I know you've started working with brand ambassadors locally. How has that helped you grow your business?
So we've just started the program very, very recently. I think it's just been about 15 or 20 days right now. So it's not that old. We're still in the process of identifying who are some of the brand ambassadors that we can work with. That's a very, very good point that you've raised, which is, the one about Snoop Dogg. I have seen that ad. It definitely is very, very catchy, where he's promoting fried chicken for Just Eats. I must say, I think there's something to be said about ethics there, and you're totally right. I think more often than not, we see brand ambassadors pushing a product. For example, we've all seen Coke and Pepsi hire brand ambassadors, right? They paid several millions of dollars every year to promote a product, which, frankly speaking, does no good to anybody, right? I mean, you're consuming sugar, you're consuming all sorts of artificial flavoring, and to what extent? Right. So it definitely is up to brand ambassadors to figure out where they want to promote, their goodwill, where they want to put their energy, and how they can really do good for the planet and for the people. As far as brands themselves are concerned, again, it goes back to my point on big corporations. You need to pick a brand ambassador that's right for you, number one, and you need to make sure that they are living by the values that you want to inculcate into your own company, and that you want to promote, and that you want to live by. So from our perspective, our brand ambassadors, we're hoping to get vegan brand ambassadors to do our work. So we've reached out to a couple of influencers who are very prominent both in Manchester as well as in London. They're all vegan, of course, and we're hoping that they can definitely convey the message that we want to about veganism, making the right choices, what's good for the planet, and, obviously animal welfare above all.
And I guess also with these large companies, they really do invest a lot building up their infrastructure. I think until they become profitable, and it'd be good to hear from you. Are these companies profitable now? And I guess they need to actually choose their investors wisely, who are in it for the long term, I guess. It'd be good to hear your views on the investment side of those companies, but how well they're doing today, especially with the budgets that they're spending also on marketing to gain new customers.
Excellent question. So there's a whole thing to be said about unicorns. I'll come to that in a little bit. But to start off with, I was reading about some of my bigger competitors like Deliveroo, for example, right? So Deliveroo started off with a tech team of 300 employees.
Wow. Not so much a small startup to begin with then.
It's not a small, exactly. It's not a small startup by any means. I have to hand it to these big companies. They've obviously done well. They have software that's scalable. Just to give you an idea of scale, Just Eats is now working with over 30 to 35,000 food businesses. That's a lot, right? Deliveroo is kind of catching up to that. Uber Eats is kind of way behind in the competition. Food Hub's also around, I believe, about 90 to 20,000 different partners all over the UK. But that figure is amazing, to hire 300 people on day one and get your software up and running. Now again, obviously a lot of these companies went in for the big bang model where, opening night, they had hundreds and thousands of vendors listed. And, granted, that's something that you do need to do in order to attract customers and make sure that you can really stand out and, stand apart from your competition. But at the same time, if you take a look at the profitability, very few of these companies are actually turning a profit. So, again, some of these figures are official. Some of these figures are based on reports that I've read. So please don't quote me on on how accurate they may be. But for example, I saw the year-end financials for Deliveroo in 2018, and they were not turning a profit. And this was after being in business for over 5 years. After getting a valuation of over $1 billion, they were turning no profits.
Yeah,
so
I guess they must have a graph plotted somewhere with their break-even point in terms of customers and their infrastructure costs going down, and then they must have an idea of where it's going in order to attract also new investment, right?
Yeah. And that's a great question. So, what is the end game for some of these companies? So, another figure that I do want to quote to you is Just Eat. I believe it was, I think it was 2019, where they turned a profit of 80 million and their revenue was £1 billion. So that's not a lot, I mean, but still, to Just Eat's credit, they're at least profitable,
right?
Whereas Deliveroo just wasn't.
Yeah.
Uber Eats still hasn't made money.
Do you know why? Do you know why that is?
There are a lot of reasons. So Just Eat's model is a little different. Just Eat's, when it first came into the UK from across the pond, they were obviously a small company. They tried to make headway first by providing a POS system, a point of sale system, which is where they really excelled. Their second big entry into the market was to help takeaways do their business. So, how do you get e-orders? How do you manage e-orders, electronic orders? And, how do you make sure that the customer can access the menu quickly, place their order quickly, get out, come and pick up the food. And then they started getting into delivery. So they've had a more sustainable model from that perspective. On the delivery side, Just Eat, and this is all the research that I've been able to do, they have been able to do the delivery part a bit right as well. And what I mean by a bit right is they've obviously gone ahead and built out their own delivery network where it makes sense. And their reach is just phenomenal. They're literally in every in every nook and corner in the UK. You can go to the remotest part of the UK, and if there's a takeaway, you will find a Just Eat sign there.
Wow. Yeah.
So, to their credit, they've definitely done that. But at the same time, they've also partnered with Stewart in doing delivery.
Okay.
So they've been able to leverage another company that specializes only in logistics. They've been able to partner with those folks and do the delivery. Deliveroo, on the other hand, what they've been doing is they've been creating their own delivery network. They've been using a lot of their funding to basically provide discounted deliveries. I'll give you an example. I've spent countless hours I've done countless hours of research on Facebook groups where Deliveroo, Just Eat, Stewart, Uber Eats, delivery riders and drivers, they come and talk about their experiences. A lot of the posts are not pleasant. They're always bashing the companies, the culture, the pay, etc. But all that aside, there's a lot of insight that you gain into how these companies operate. So the question that you asked me is, why are these companies not profitable? Where is all of that investment money going? That investment money, a lot of it, in my opinion, is really going into discounting deliveries, right? So there are cases where people have picked up a £3 order. They've earned a delivery fee of £3.20 on that, and they've delivered it 3 miles away. Financially, for someone like me, who's small, who's trying to make this work for an investor, who's trying to make it work for myself before I even approach an investor, that does not make sense to me. The effort that it takes somebody to pick up an order, wait for it, deliver it 3 miles, come back to the same spot.
Do you think they've made a call a justification call on doing that because they see the lifetime value of that customer being more valuable than a one-time delivery, I guess.
And that is another excellent question. Yes, there is something to be said about how much you can earn from a single customer, but at the same time, some of these metrics are dubious. They're very, very muddled, so to say, because an active customer on some of these platforms is somebody who uses their app probably once a month or probably 2 times every 6 months. So,
okay.
If you go by those standards, it's very, very difficult to calculate how much over a period of, say 2 or 3 years you're going to make back from a customer.
Yeah.
So this is where sustainability really comes into play. It's, how much money you're taking in, how much of that are you justifiably spending in a cause that is not discounting deliveries, but it's actually making sure that you're setting the right precedent for the customer, for the investors, and also for food businesses. Because end of the day, there is no such thing as a free delivery. There is no such thing as a £1 50p delivery within a 3-mile radius. If you're doing that, you're just setting up for failure in my point of view, right? And you're also screwing up an industry beyond repair. And what I mean by that is, somebody like Amazon, they've decidedly just invested. I think it's about $500 million into Deliveroo. And Deliveroo is still not turning a profit, but they're still offering free delivery to every new customer for 14 days. They're still offering free delivery to every new food business that they sign up for 15 days.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself how.
Yeah.
And exactly where their money is going. And the worst part is, from all of my research, all of the industry-wide strikes that delivery workers have been making all over the UK, clearly they're not getting paid any of that investment that's coming in from outside companies. They're not even getting paid their fair share for every delivery. So you're basically undercutting every other major player in the market using that money. You're undercutting the people who are making your company profitable, not so profitable for you, but they're actually making it work for you, but they are not getting any benefit out of it. So, I believe there's a lot of wrong that these companies are doing. They need to stop cheap deliveries. They need to make sure that the customer sees what is a fair price for delivery. They need to make sure that the food business sees what the fair price of a delivery is, and they need to make sure that the person who's doing the delivery, who's spending hours outside a restaurant or a cafe waiting for the next order to come in, gets paid their fair share.
Yeah. And one thing that you've done throughout the veins of your company is also look at your own tech stack and really think carefully about who you're working with, especially in lines with your company's values.
Right. Yeah, and that's a great question. So tech stack is not the only thing. When we call ourselves an ethical alternative to Deliveroo, Just Eat, or Uber Eats, there's obviously there's the vegan bit. So that box we've checked. The other thing that we're really trying to do is create an ethical ecosystem for ourselves. Ecosystem is basically, the environment where we work in, the environment where we partner with multiple companies to make sure that we can provide the right services, or that we can get access to the right services so we can serve our customers and our partners better, right? So obviously for a company our size, the 2 main spaces that we're looking at is delivery and tech stack, before we start going into other places or into other verticals for that matter. So from a tech stack perspective, any cent or any pence or any pound that we spend, we treat it as investing in a company, right? Because they're going to take that money, they're going to put that into their operations, they're going to put that into the community, how they serve their community, or how they negatively impact their community. So we want to make sure that we're doing right by how we're spending our money. So obviously we've ruled out Amazon, even though Amazon Web Services is this giant that provides an integrated way for any tech company to get started, be it sending SMSs, emails, you name it, they have a solution for that. And it's very, very easy to use. But at the same time, we feel that Amazon is such a large player, it's probably one of the largest corporations in the world. They have so much power, they have so much sway that they can actually have an impact on how they want to positively affect a certain vertical or a certain industry. And they have chosen actively not to do that. So when it comes to treating their own labor force right, the pandemic has shown that they have not done that. They are getting sued from multiple states in the US. There are multiple countries that have kind of made it difficult for them to come in and do business in their countries, or to even partner up with some of the bigger corporations in those countries. So there's a reason why all of that is happening. There's a reason why the strike is happening, which is one of the core reasons as to why we have decided not to spend a single cent or a single pence on Amazon. Personally, I don't use Amazon for the one-click order or the next day or the same day deliveries. And we obviously don't use that professionally as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that's quite a bold move to make to avoid them, but also not buy their products. I mean, me personally, one of the companies that I helped grow in the UK years ago on the ad tech side, called iBlaster and MediaMind, that company, Seismic, was actually purchased by Amazon. So I still have a lot of friends there. So but the other side, and I agree with you, is there's definitely more to be done on the sustainability side. The labor wages, etc., the minimum wages. But more importantly, I think there's this wave of consumerism, and people are buying too many things that they probably don't need to. We've probably seen quite a lot of it in this pandemic, with the approach of buying stuff quite easily, and it's great. It's given growth to these e-commerce retailers, and we see there's a big opportunity also for advertising in that space. But I think that there needs to be more stances that they make. Like one simple thing that I think Jeff Bezos said a few years ago was that, when they're sending out packages, it doesn't need to have, this glossy images on their products looking at sustainability, because you've already bought the product. You've seen the image online. You don't need it in a fancy box. So the packaging element is something that's actually quite crucial. I think that needs to be enforced in a way. And also going back to those other points, I mean, I think there needs to be, the top-down approach, but they should also encourage growth in these new ventures, which they do. But I think they also obviously seeing it as a commercial opportunity.
Yeah, it definitely is. I don't know about the whole glossy paper thing or, the whole plastic covering thing. I think it still exists. I haven't bought anything from Amazon in over 2 years now, so I wouldn't know. But I know friends of mine, they keep buying stuff off of Amazon. And, I think some of that still exists. But and you're right. End of the day, companies really need to push down. I think they need to take a deep, hard look at themselves and see, what am I doing to enable another company go greener, for example, or another company be more sustainable. So, one of the things which is it's a small thing, but it does have an impact on some of the food traders that we work with. We have a relationship with EnviroPack in the UK. And it's a brilliant company. They do biodegradable packaging, they do compostable packaging, or they do fully recyclable packaging. They also obviously have, plastic-based solutions.
Okay.
Should you need them. But at the same time, what we tell our partners is, hey, we have a discount really set up with this company.
You're right. Right.
Let them know we sent you. You'll get the discount, or if you like, we can place the order on your behalf, and we'll get you a discount. And nice. We urge them to go as eco-friendly as they can.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's really up to the partners themselves to see what really makes sense for them. Luckily, so far, everybody that we work with does everything that's either fully recyclable or fully compostable or fully biodegradable. So we're very lucky in that respect.
That's great. And it would be great to talk and tell me a little bit about your background story, your career. You said you mentioned you went vegan 3 years ago. Great to hear a bit more about that.
Definitely. So I've been a vegetarian all my life. I've been vegan for the last 3 years. There's a really good story as to when and why I became vegan. So my wife and I, we had gone to a Jain conference in North Carolina about 3 years ago. And the gentleman who was leading the conference, he made a point about veganism, and he said that how all Jains, and Jainism is several thousand-year-old religion, where the basic principle is that of nonviolence. So the entire religion is basically centered around ahimsa or nonviolence. So the way that he explained as to why every Jain should go vegan is that nonviolence is not just the act of killing an animal or killing or taking a life at a certain point in time, but it's basically the torment and the misery that this life is put through up until the point that they're slaughtered, be it for meat or because they can't give out milk anymore, whatever the reasons be. And that really, it struck a chord with both me and my wife, and we went vegan the very next day.
Wow.
But Get Vegan Grub is not just about promoting animal rights, about promoting veganism. It's a lot more than that. A few years ago, when I was working with Deloitte Consulting, I was put on a project for the state of Kentucky. Without going into too many details, basically, it was a project that was making it harder for people to access benefits, like Social Security, food stamps, etc. So 2 months into the project, when it finally dawned upon me and some of the other team members, what are we really doing out here? Because it usually takes a little bit of a time for you to really get to know what the project is all about and where it's really going. It really hit me as much as I love working for Deloitte, this is something that I can't see myself doing. So 20 days later, I found myself a way out of that project. And I had an open conversation with my manager, and I told him that, I'm sorry, I just don't see myself doing this. To my credit, 2 months later, the US Supreme Court struck down that entire initiative by the state of Kentucky as unconstitutional.
Mm.
So, that was like a turning point in my professional career, which really got me thinking, what do I really want to do with my life? Obviously I wanted to start something of my own. I went vegan, and I feel like Get Vegan Grub is like this perfect sweet spot where I can determine for myself the values that I want to live by. And also hopefully in some small way set an example for entrepreneurs everywhere that, listen, there's an alternative way of doing things. We can still be in a competitive market, play fair. We can still avoid companies like Amazon Web Services, and we can still support other smaller players in the industry, give them our business, because that's the only way smaller companies can really survive and grow, is if we support each other. It was two very, very defining moments in my life that have led up to starting Get Vegan Grub. And I hope I can just take it forward and bigger from here on.
Mm. So on the Jainism side, there's obviously the core ethic there that you mentioned was non-violence and to all living creatures. I know somebody else who saw somebody speak, again, I think it was a conference where they compared the dairy industry. If you're consuming dairy, like a glass of milk or some cheese or some paneer, that's equivalent of you consuming this much quantity of beef, because they go hand in hand. I'm not sure that's always so clear that fact is so clear because of the, the way the cows are so sacred, etc. So I guess there's still a big community of Jains that are consuming dairy. But do you see that side in how should that be addressed more especially with that community and other communities?
Yeah. I think that's a really, really good point. So, like you said, especially coming from India, where the cow is sacred, from a religious perspective, and people pray to it, and they think like consuming the milk is it's almost like a blessing from the cow itself. It's very, very normalized in society, quite honestly, and I don't think anybody really knows how modern industrial farming is really being done. But rewind a few hundred years ago, cows were happily living on a farm. Obviously they were made to do work which is still not ethical, but at the same time, people would consume milk that was always left over. So whatever the calf could not drink, they would basically take that and then they would consume that. So I've heard stories from my grandparents that they would not consume milk every day. It would be every few times a week, because whenever the excess milk would come, that's when they would actually buy it and then consume it. So it was a very sustainable model, several decades ago. But fast forward to now, it definitely is not. And I think a lot of us are still stuck in that old mentality that yes, the cow is sacred. And you know what? The milk just comes, we can drink it. Which is not really the case. But, move hemispheres, come over to the Western side. Again, the dairy industry, what they've done out here is, it's again, this complete brainwashing campaign where they've plastered happy cows everywhere. Little kids with giant, jugs of milk or giant glasses of milk saying, hey, calcium is good for me. So, they have this whole marketing arm to their, on their side. They have a whole lobbying agency that they've employed to make sure that milk is seen as something which is okay to drink, whereas clearly it is not. But there's definitely a big push. There are a lot of societies, in India, a lot of Jain societies that are actually pushing for veganism. So that's amazing. I think the same goes for a lot of Hindu cultural associations as well. They are pushing for veganism. In London, I just recently spoke to a lovely couple last weekend, and they started Jain Vegans. And again, their whole mission is basically to educate Jains in London and within the UK on the benefits of going vegan and why Jains should really be looking to go vegan. So there's a lot of work being done in the area, and as you've seen, there's just so many new media channels now, be it YouTube live news channels or websites that have come up that are actually educating a lot of people. Obviously there are associations like PETA. I think a lot of people may not agree with the way that they do things, but I think we need people to really show the truth of the dairy industry. It's an inconvenient truth. It's not something pretty to look at, but it's happening every day. It's happening every hour. And it's really up to us to say no and stop it. I don't know if you followed the recent law that was passed by the EU on dairy. Did you? Yeah. So there was a huge uproar in the vegan community about that. I think the EU should have done better with taxpayer money and where they spend their time. Things like debating things like what is milk, what is not milk.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, that's just a waste of time, waste of taxpayer money. And obviously, it's a huge blow for companies who are doing plant-based milk and plant-based products to basically rethink and rebrand their entire packaging.
Yeah,
that's just a way for them to basically say that you guys are still secondary players.
Yeah, and it's totally not aligned with European, EU, UN sustainability goals, right? It just makes no sense. Not to penalize the companies that need to grow.
Exactly, and I thought that was that was just something which they should not have welcomed. But the milk, the dairy industry lobby is very, very strong. They're really, really well funded. So I suspect that until dairy really starts to die off,
right,
they're going to be around. But you know what? It's really good to know that the dairy industry is facing losses. I think we've seen some really, really big players, both in Europe and in the US, make losses. Some of the big players have even gone out of business. So I think that's good news. Obviously, we want people to be employed. I want to make sure that the workers are getting their fair share of wages. And I think it's up to, going back to the same point, what are corporations doing with all their money? Invest in plant-based milks, invest in plant-based alternatives.
Yeah.
There's plenty of employment opportunities there.
Yeah. And then, we obviously want these farmers to be employed. And one of the interviews that I gave was a company called Refarmed, and they would reposition the dairy farms to become an animal sanctuary, and then for them to transform it into an oat milk supplier, which they can then deliver locally. So I think these initiatives are great for those industries. Obviously, it doesn't help with the big players, but for the smaller players, it will start to grow. And I think, obviously, it's a declining industry with dairy for sure. You mentioned earlier that you wanted to talk about, the age of unicorns. So it'd be great to hear your thoughts about where these, how these companies are growing to the early stage, getting to IPOs or trade exits, and what your thoughts are around that in the long term.
Yeah, great question again. I think the unicorn symbolizes a mythical creature. It never existed. It never will.
Right? You try telling my daughter that. I think she'll have a debate with you on that.
I'm sure. In line with that line of thought, right? It's a mythical creature. You can't touch it. You can't feel it. And I feel that, the age of unicorns is definitely over. I think you'll still find a lot of companies trying to pursue that route. But I really feel if you want to be sustainable, you want to grow with the market, and you want to change things within your local community, I believe the best way of doing that is to be a camel. So there was a very good article in HBR, around the age of unicorns being over, and the age of camel is actually here to stay. So, camel symbolizes basically a desert animal who can who can go without food and water for long periods of time. They move slowly, but they move steadily, and they make sure that you get from point A to point B alive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So which is really what we're out to do is, yes, it's always easy to hire, several hundred people to come in and do your work for you. It's always easy to get that early investment. Well, it's not easy, but it's always easy to justify why you want that early investment and show this really, really shiny upside. But what you're really doing is you're still turning losses year after year after year, in the way, in hopes that A, you'll either be acquired after some time, or B, you'll acquire somebody else, get their customers, and hopefully scale to a point where you can start turning a profit. We want to stay away from that sort of a model. I do understand that if a potential investor does see this, it's probably not what they want to hear. But we're also looking to go with investors, who value their time, who value the ethics that we believe in, and who have a same set of principles that we abide by. And again, for us, it's, we're a very, very small self-funded company right now. So we're growing, using whatever resources we have, and any resources that we do get in the near future, we want to make sure that we respect those, and we grow in a sustainable fashion, where we can actually show good returns, steady growth to our investors. And again, let other companies know that there is another way of doing business. We don't all have to go big bang, make losses for 5 or 6 years before we start to show some profits.
Mm-hmm. And I guess from an investor point of view, you're looking for those startups that aren't going to give up, right? And find alternatives and survive as a business, right? That's the main key growth, that you're investing in a company with good long-term opportunities.
Exactly. Yeah. It's, everything goes back to how steady your growth is, how you onboard employees, how you add to the organization, when you need finance, how you're going to use that finance, and, obviously justify, how that finance is really going to be used, and what investors can really see as a realistic return, at the end of 5 or 6 years. Again, it's all about including people in the community. So we're also taking a look at perhaps even starting our own delivery network if we can reach to a certain scale, and which is why I keep going back to involving our own community, and what sort of impact are we having on our own community. Is right now the whole delivery industry is really it's not doing well. Like, the people who are doing the deliveries are not getting paid well. With our model, we hope that we can provide them a sustainable wage, something that's more predictable, and it works for everybody. So we're not making a loss, we're not discounting deliveries, and at the same time, we're using funds in a way that they're meant to be used, and people who are doing the labor and getting the food from point A to point B are getting what they deserve for it.
Yeah. So today you're you're mainly in Manchester, but you are planning to come to London, I think, with your service next year. I think, was it February you're looking at?
Yes.
Is that right? So 2021. How is your plans for growth, and what sort of help do you need to help you in the London market, for example?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. Again, given the kind of resources that we have, unfortunately, we won't be able to take over London overnight. I wish that we could, but it's not realistic. It's not possible right now with where we are. Our focus is going to be in areas that are very, very vegan friendly. So, for example, in East London, places like Shoreditch.
Yeah.
Right. It's a dense area. There are a lot of vegan restaurants there.
Yeah. How about Camden? Could be another opportunity.
Definitely.
Very popular.
Yeah, definitely. So the whole point is to get hold of a few dozen food businesses there. Make sure that we can set them up with delivery. Make sure that we can set them up with contactless pickup or takeaway services. It's easy for customers to use, where they can just scan a QR code outside, place the order, come in, get it in a socially distanced way, leave, eat the food, leave a review for these people. So we want to go, we have humble plans. We want to go small, but we want to make sure that the people that we serve can be served really, really well. And, obviously, we offer a lot of savings to our partners. So, for example, we don't charge them any joining fees. There are no monthly fees, and they pay a very, very low commission per sale. Essentially, the way that I let every food business know is, you have nothing to lose if you partner with us, but you only have an additional sales channel that's dedicated to vegans to gain for zero fixed cost. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah. So, and the sort of restaurants you're after, obviously, Shoreditch, very vegan friendly area, lots of vegan restaurants. You're looking to approach vegan, vegetarian, and, traditional restaurants as well in your approach?
Yes. So the idea is, obviously vegan restaurants take priority because they are our favorite customer, and those are also the kind of businesses that can really provide value when a foodie comes onto our platform to order food. But then again, we're not just going to stop there. We could even go to a steakhouse, for example. Not the best example for a plant podcast, but this is what we're really trying to do. Is we could even go to a steakhouse and say, hey, if you have a vegan menu, list only your vegan menu on our app. So when people find you in the area, they know to come to you with their non-vegan friends, but they can still get a meal.
Right, exactly.
And at the end of the day, if somebody puts out a menu with just 3 or 4 items, they're going to take a long, hard look at what they're doing and see that, oh my God, you know what? There's a huge growing demographic out there.
Yeah.
I need to be able to attract these people because eventually they're going to come to my place of business to have a meal, with some of their non-vegan friends.
Yeah.
I need to be able to cater to them. So we're hoping that, people see this as, and they wake up to the reality of what's happening, in the world outside them, in the world outside, and increase their vegan offerings. From a point of view of, enlisting help, what we're asking people to do is, we spoke about the brand ambassador program. So, that's obviously up and running. We've made it very, very lucrative, where what we're letting our brand ambassadors know is make an introduction to the food business that and if they join our platform, we're going to do a revenue split with you for a full year.
Wow, that's very generous. I think that's quite quite a good model, actually. Yeah.
So it's a great way for people to generate some passive income, and you're always out there eating at restaurants. You're always putting up reviews. So we're not asking you to do anything more. We're not asking you to sell on our behalf. All we're asking you to do is live your life that you would regularly. But if you happen to make a contact, happen to make a good referral to us, post about us frequently, we'll get you into the brand ambassador program, and we'll get you going with some really, really cool benefits.
So I'll add those links if you have them. I can put it on the description if there's anyone watching who's interested, or any restaurants that want to get in touch with you. But yeah, awesome. Congratulations on what you've achieved and how you're growing, and the sustainability and the ethical approach that you have to your business. So yeah, wish you all the best, and I hope to get some deliveries coming to me soon.
Definitely. It's been very heartwarming. I think the amount of positive messages that we've received from people all over the UK, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's just been amazing. A lot of people just reaching out on social media, email, any channel, just saying, hey, this is the stuff of dreams. And I was like, thank you. That means a lot to us. There are a couple of people who also reached out to us, and they've asked us some really, really hard-hitting questions on things like, what makes you ethical? Is it just the vegan aspect, or is it more than that? And I welcomed each and every one of those questions, and I got back to them, and I also sent them my phone number, and I said, if you ever want to discuss more, feel free to give me a call. I'm more than happy to talk to you about what really makes us different from everyone else.
Yeah, well, you've explained a lot of that today on the call. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, bye for now.
Bye.